Well, Omar, thank you so much for helping my project. Could you say a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, my name's Omar. I'm born and raised in Miami. I'm originally from Miami. In Philadelphia right now, because of one of the very special reasons in my life, which is my son. He lives in New Jersey, and I also have a daughter that lives in Miami with me down there. And I've been doing financial services for as a profession for like about 12 years now, and also an entrepreneur and a space advocate.
Well,
So
that's awesome. How old are your children?
my daughter's 9, Lena, and my son Landon is 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do they have any interest in space?
Yeah, I mean, my son, I mean, he kind of likes the rockets and stuff. My daughter, she has an interest in space. We had this practice where we would look at the stars at night with the app. And we would kind of look at the different stars and try to name them, and try to memorize their names. So so yeah, she's definitely has an interest.
I was just talking to somebody yesterday about how many of those stars are just like our sun, but they're so far away you can only see them as a point. And,
Mm.
that is a really difficult concept for the human mind to grasp, right?
Yeah, the fact that we're hurtling through space,
Or the fact that there's so many
so is
suns
everything
like,
else.
oh,
Yeah.
and the fact that there's so many suns
Mm.
like ours, but they're just, so far away, it's just like kind of,
Yeah.
I think, I, I mean, I guess your children's understanding of sort of our place in the universe,
Mhm.
um, I mean, how do you talk to them about that, and
Mm.
what connects with them?
Um, I try to ask them questions about what they think. Um, it's my experience. Children are very wise, um, and a lot of times it just requires like a deeper level of listening. Um, because I don't know that it's that difficult. Like for my daughter, for example, it's not that difficult for her to grasp. Um, and then there's like the fascination, right? Like that children have. That's really cool to be connected to. I think having that sort of just free fascination, like just like that expression, right? To just be like, wow, like that's something that's when I share with her, she kind of reminds me of that. That I could always have that kind of a fascination about life, not be such a know-it-all and resigned.
Yeah,
So
they don't have a filter and they don't have an ego. It's like
right.
it's like their thinking, observing part is like
On.
driving. It's like on,
Right.
yeah. But somehow over the course of our lives, that part becomes more and more silent or inactive, and we become so much more. Well, this must be true because this is what I've always believed, and you
Yeah.
know, type
Yeah.
thing. Just like, I mean, I kind of challenge. I'm struggle with that too. I mean, the other thing is, if you didn't have a certain set of beliefs, I mean, you literally would be so bogged down that you couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's right. Yeah. I don't know. I think it's kind of natural, and for us to. I think it's like almost what then allows that experience to be genuine again. I work with a Space for Humanity. I'm sure you know Rachel and the people there, and they had they have someone who's an advisor who's like a planetary scientist, and he's like in his 60s or something, and they just announced that they're gonna consider him to be on one of the next launches for NASA, right? Like upcoming ones. And they said that he had like there was just this giddiness, like this fascination, you know. And I was like, wow, to be 70 or to be 60 and to still be able to experience that, you know, I don't know. It's like, I guess it's like I kind of can see the value of, which is going to sound bad, but like the having all those obstacles, you know, because then it's like you get to break through them again. And like I said, like get reminded again, you know, get connected again. So that's kind of cool. The capacity that we have to be able to do that, despite the challenges and, you know, things that have come up in our life. And yeah, it's pretty special.
Yeah, definitely. You know, there's a lot of things that I think prevent us from doing that, like tribalism and
Mm.
you know this kind of uh, need to maintain the position of the group. You know, it's like how often do you talk to people and you have a conversation, but you realize that you're not actually communicating with the person whose ideas are being conveyed. You know, it's like so there's like no hope of changing any minds or anything because they're actually
Yeah.
not an active participant and
Yeah.
absorbing or formulating these viewpoints. They're just
Yeah.
uh,
They're just regurgitating it.
right, right,
Yeah.
yeah. And
I,
how do we how how do we get past that and actually start
mm.
seeing each other as real people and kind of connect? You know?
Mm. I kind of relate to it like, I don't know if you've ever heard of this, but there's this thing that's said in child development, children, young children, like, you know, a few months old, um, when the mother leaves the vision of the child, in the child's mind, it is like the mother left and is gone forever and will never come back, right? Um, and you know, we're kind of like, oh, poor baby, it's okay, like, you know, we kind of, that's kind of how we treat it, you know. Um, and I kind of see this sort of the same thing. It's like, you know, you can really see the people that operate that way, like, wow, like you really live like in that reality that, like, you know, where you're from and your history is like the only truth, like, and there can't be anything else. And I don't know that trying to fix it is necessarily, because it's not like you fix the child, right? It's not like you sit down with the child and say, no, that's not going to happen, and you try to coach them, and, you know, we don't really do any of that. We just understand it's just part of their development. You know, okay, they're going to cry and they're going to have, you know, they're going to be upset and they're going to go through whatever they have to go through to process this. And but eventually they're going to understand that when mom leaves the vision, that, you know, mom's coming back, she's not dead, she's not gone. You know, she went to go get a cup of water or something, you know. Like, she'll be back. So that's kind of how I see it, but just sort of like on a bigger scale, you know, where I think the answer is like in person to person. If even one person, if for you, Nathan, in these interviews, even one person is able to see a new way of life outside of that, that would be a victory to me.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, sometimes I think maybe you have to approach it from a safe area. It's like you need
Yeah.
tools of thought, right? I mean, there's like
Yeah.
a reasoning process that you're trying to stimulate and to kind of instill in people that is
Yeah.
completely independent of any subject. It's like how do you know what the true answers are? And
Mm-hmm.
you know, schools are actually really awful about this, right? Because
Yeah.
the true answers is whatever the teacher says it is. The true answer is
Right.
whatever's in the back of the book. You know, it doesn't
That's
matter
right.
how wrong or right that feels to me. That's the
Yeah.
answer. And
Yeah.
now, like all of society, the true answer is whatever you type on Google and get back.
Yeah. That's it. That, you know, you may have touched upon something that might be, if I would say, if there would be like a critical point from which we could truly transform this, like in our society and all of our, like the world society, it would be the children. It would be, I would say, not the children, the education of the children, and shifting it from like downloading information, which in many ways I think has really become obsolete given the information age and everything that's been going on. And sort of turning education more into like practicing thinking, you know, like mastering thinking, like for yourself, you know, like kind of like what you're saying, like challenging ideas and challenging what is the truth, and, you know, and making that safe, right? So yeah, I would say it's probably transforming education, like to one of where expression is okay, being expressed is okay, making mistakes is okay, being wrong is okay. We're just kind of sharpening ourselves. And I would finish by saying where it's not just the individual, that we're going to discover it together. You know, it's not just what does Nathan know? And then, okay, Nathan, you tell me something about how it should be or shouldn't be, right? But it's, we both don't know, and we're going to discover it together. We're going to converse, and we're going to say what we have to say, and, you know, express how we have to express. And, you know, you'll be able to get my emotion and my passion and my commitment behind what I'm saying, and I'll do the same. And then maybe hopefully somewhere in the middle we'll discover something about the topic that we're, right?
Oh, exactly. Yeah, it's almost
Yeah.
like you take a group of people, you put them in a building they have never been in before, and they have no clue how it works. And it's like, okay, guys, figure out how to get out of this. You know, they're
Yeah.
they're not
One of
going.
those escape rooms,
Yeah,
like an
exactly.
escape room for humanity. Yeah.
Yeah. and, and maybe that's what the Earth is.
Yeah. That's great. Actually, I've never heard of that, but that's, I'm going to share that. That's a pretty cool, yeah, you know, that's kind of cool because it's true. Like, I mean, anytime we've gotten anyone out of the Earth's atmosphere, I would say it's required a level of cooperation that was never present before. I mean, that's one of the things that excites me about space, is that it just requires a level of cooperation that, like, we can't sit around, you know, arguing about these little, you know, conversations about what your ancestors did and what my ancestors did. And, like, you know, it's like, you know, I think about like the whole Apollo 11. Well, what's the movie? Is it Apollo 13
Yeah,
with
with
Tom
Tom
Hanks?
Hanks. Yeah.
Yeah, you know that scene where like they go to the okay, this is all the stuff these astronauts have. We got to figure out a way to like get them to have air, like to breathe, you know. And I just think of that moment, like, I'm not going to care what your ancestors did. You know, we're trying to like help them. You know, like that's it's like we're able to set that aside, the ego, right? Or, you know, as we describe it.
Wow. But sorry, we kind of hit a
Yeah.
point, an idea about the Earth being an escape room. You know, to kind of
Yeah.
embellish that a little bit more.
Yeah.
You know, the Earth is like the ultimate escape room where it's comfortable. You don't have to do anything. You know, you got your food, you got your friends there, everything's there. You know, why bother? Let's just
Yeah.
stay in there, you know? But yet people would never think about doing that in a real escape room, regardless of how comfortable you made it for them.
That's true. That's very true. Which is kind of a testament to the pioneers, right, of space, like any from all over the world that have had this desire to escape, like whatever that human desire is that you want to, you know, they're just like, we got to get out, we got to see it, you know, we got to. It does kind of say something, because you're right. This is like the most comfortable escape room ever, you know, and it's beautiful, you
Yeah.
know, so much to do. I mean,
What
could
more could you
literally spend
want, you know?
lifetimes. Yeah, like we've literally spent generations in this escape room, and very few have complained about it. So
Well, I mean, the thing is, it's like, you know, being in like an ultimate escape room, the people that first went in it know they're in an escape room. But then they have children, their children have children, and their children children have children. And at some point, that escape room becomes everything they have ever known. The idea of there being something outside of it is, I mean, why? Like at some point, those just become old people stories that are probably suffering from dementia or some type of mental
Yeah.
issue, and the fact that there used to be more,
Right.
it's like,
Yeah, grandpa,
yeah,
whatever. Yeah, no. Oh, that's great.
yeah,
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
uh,
Yeah, I sometimes when I think about for me it's like I look at it like societies, like milestones, like the Roman Empire, the Greek Empire,
mhm.
Mongolian Empire, Chinese dynasties, um, Egyptian, right? Like you look at all these, and I just think about these societies that in those times they were the pinnacle of society, right? Babylon, right? And they're gone, like and like totally gone, and like now there's like we're just kind of looking at them like artifacts or like like tourist tourist traps or whatever. And
But even more recently,
mhm.
the British Empire, the Spanish Empire,
Yeah,
the
that's
Portuguese
right,
Empire,
right.
I mean, it's just like, I mean,
You don't need
can you
you don't need to
can
look
you
far, like
can you
yeah.
imagine actually having like some figure arbitrate a dispute between Spain and Portugal to divide the world between them? I mean, like, you go tell somebody if this is actually the current event of some time, they would be like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
Yeah, right. It's just funny, you know it's funny. It's like anyway, yeah, it's like this. What are we to it makes me think about it sometimes too. I mean, you mentioned like my kids, right? Like what do I talk to them about? And one of the things I'm sort of, I don't know when this started for me, but I'm kind of careful of is like I don't really want to impart my truth on them. I kind of want them to get to their own. And because I think about how many times like in my life I've had these sort of aha moments where it's like I've let go of this truth that I bought into. A simple one's like Santa Claus, right? It's like a really simple one, right? Like really believed in it, really thought it was the truth. But yeah, just the ways of thinking and you know that are like just ingrained. And I think that's again going back to that point of like that to me is like where the magic will happen is if we can all if we're all willing to um, give up what we think is true, not all the time, but even just for a second, just to be in a conversation with somebody, instead of being positional, everything that's going on with the country, there's just a lot of positionalness. People are being positional, and it's like we've lost the ability to just give up what might be true for us, to just hear what may be true for another person. Whether we think it's right or wrong or whatever. Um, yeah, that's sort of my thing. Is like if we can give up right and wrong.
well, and the cost of what you're saying in today's society is very high because it means being shunned and expelled by the community that you consider yourself to be a part of. Like, I mean, that's
Yeah.
kind of like the level of tribalism that it seems that we're operating at.
Yeah, and then that's what I mean is like, I guess for me, right? Um, because when I hear tribalism, and it could be like just my definition of tribalism, right? But when I hear tribalism, like where I go is like old, you know, ancient, uh, whatever problems, right? Like Jewish people and Palestinian people, right? Their ancient battles or wars and discussions and disagreements or whatever, right? And then it's like then we point to, well, it's because of the way they are, right? It's because of the way Jewish people are. It's because of the way Muslim people are, and that's why, and they're tribal, and but I think of it like no, I think it's like a humanity thing that we get to really look at. That you don't have to have any kind of past, you don't have to have any kind of relationship with any culture or anything, and there seems to be this persistence with tribalism, right? where, I mean, even the problems in this country are like a few hundred years old. They're not even that, like they're not that deep, and here we are, in the same conversation. And I just feel like almost like we're trying to solve those problems, like we're trying to make it okay, or like resolve them, but we're not getting to the, like, they're the symptoms, they're not the thing that's causing the symptom. I think the thing that's causing the symptom is like this overall um like unwillingness to relate to one another, like all of us on the planet, as like one. It's like, as soon as I disagree with you, what's safe and easy for me to do is find a way to make you not human. And that has been there always. And I assert, until that gets really, where we really start doing damage to that as a people, maybe even being aware of it, that's been the biggest thing. Because I mean, I think about, like, to drive one society to go to war to another, where they're willing to destroy the other society, you have to make them into monsters. Like, there's no way. And maybe it's my belief that I think people genuinely are good, there's no way you do that without some overarching justification. Which is what's inspiring about, like, Martin Luther King and Gandhi, is that they were able to find ways to impact things that weren't working without resorting to, they're the villains and they're the monsters that we need to destroy.
Yeah, the interesting thing about Gandhi, I've read a bit about him, is that, early on in his career, he saw himself as a British citizen. He loved the British
Right.
Empire. He thought it was a force for good and
Wow.
everything else. And then, basically through a personal experience, like in South Africa, and kind
With
of
apartheid and
exactly being kicked off of a train just because he didn't look right. And I kind of that experience, and then realizing sort of the insensitivities and the plights and what have you. But it's just really, really kind of I mean, what's really amazing is how much I think Gandhi really appreciated and identified with the British, but yet just because he was seen as that other, the people couldn't accept him. I mean, it's just like
wow.
it's kind of crazy. It's like
like, he loved them so much and he just wanted to be a part of them.
yeah. I mean, and I mean, I think in some respects, in terms of like the technology and sort of like the structure of society and what have you, he saw some benefits in that. But ultimately, like, there's like a moral issue talking exactly about what you're talking about. Whenever one group of people sees another group of people as being non-human, and this is very much was prevalent in like British society during the time of colonial rule. Was the societies over which they controlled, they did not see them as equals, and to some extent they didn't see them as humans. I mean, just like the massacres that were done by British army officials to peaceful protesters is just completely. I mean, it's just like how do you do that? It's like, I don't know if you watched the movie Gandhi. I found that I like tear up every time I see that
Yes.
movie. But I mean, there is somebody, I think, he wrote a book, My Experiments with Truth, as autobiography.
Mm,
And he strikes me as somebody that even in his adulthood was able to look at the world with those fresh eyes.
mm,
And I don't know, I just kind of, yeah, I think I think we touched on something that I haven't explored in a while, and that's my
mm,
fascination with people like him and Martin Luther King too. Um, the thing about Martin Luther King, um, I don't. I think in the South, in the U.S., Black people had always had that feeling of not being accepted. Uh, so I don't think he started from, kind of had that same transition that Gandhi had. It's always kind of
oh, right.
fighting
He's
back.
always dealt with, yeah, the lack of acceptance.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it's
it's acceptance is hard because it goes back to what I was saying about the child, right? Like we innately accept the child where he is and where he's not, or where she is or where she's not. Like we don't make it wrong that they think mom died, and they're crying. Um, and I think that's what part of what makes all these issues sort of persist is we relate to them like there's something wrong, and it's kind of hard not to, especially when like bigotry and people are getting massacred or people are dying. Tell that person it's not wrong, right? Or like it's not, like the person dealing with that, right? It's challenging. It's challenging to bring acceptance, but I think it's like the only way to like support the other side with getting there also. If we can't accept the KKK person for where they're at with where their beliefs, I don't think you're going to have much luck impacting, really opening their eyes to accepting the world the way it is, that the world comes in all shapes and sizes, and that, it's not a threat to them. But, it's tough, right? When the guy's yelling at you and telling you you're this or that, or, because you weren't born here or whatever, however they feel about it,
I
it's tough
know.
to bring in that acceptance.
Yeah, and the irony is, if you go back a few generations, they weren't
Yeah.
born here either.
Right.
At what point you're like, well, my kids were born
Right.
here, so
Right.
you accept them? I mean, like,
Where's the stop?
yeah,
What's the year where we cut it off? This is the year. So yeah,
yeah.
I do have a 2 o'clock though, Nathan.
Oh,
I
sure,
did
no
want to let you
trouble.
know. Yeah.
What time is it there now?
1:59.
Oh, 1:59. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, Omar, thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed
Yeah.
the conversation, and
Yeah. Me
we
too.
we didn't get a chance to talk about the moon, but I think we got a chance to
Okay.
talk about something way more important.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Thanks so much. I
Okay.
appreciate the time. Have a
Okay.
great one.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.